We'll post it on our website and on Facebook like we have been doing. So we have it recording, and just as people come in, I'll get them started. Okay, Miss Bemis, if you will start screen sharing for me. And one thing that makes this a little bit harder is sometimes I can't see what you can see. So I rely on hand signals because we're not in the same place for me to see what you're seeing. So guys, and we'll all practice together. Give me a thumbs up if you see a slide that says Brighton Academy, fully digital parent communication. Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, that means we can all see the same thing. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. And some of this presentation we went over before, and I thought because things have changed since then, it would be the easiest to keep what we've already discussed and just add in the changes for it. So we'll go ahead and get started. The very first question that I wanted to be able to answer for you, if you'll go ahead and advance, Ms. Bemis, is why are we starting fully digital? If you'll remember, we talked about Brighton Safe Start Plan always having a strong online component to handle students who may get sick or need to be on quarantine or didn't feel like they could be at school at that time, as well as if the need presented itself where we couldn't come to school. And so between that parent meeting where we talked about the 3 options and this one, the 3 reasons that you see in front of you are the main factors of why we are starting out online. Our goal is still to eventually get to face-to-face instruction, but I just wanted you to see kind of some of the information that was provided to us so that you have a better understanding. So every week now, I participate in communication with the Department of Public Health. It was every other week, and as school gets closer, it's now weekly. And as of yesterday, our Douglas County is still in the red zone. They use the term substantial spread. And you get in the red zone when you have over 100 cases per 100,000 residents. And Douglas County currently has 1,220 cases. So that's one reason the community spread put us in that red zone, which according to some of the guidance from the Georgia Department of Education is when you're going to default into the online learning. And then the Department of Public Health also talked about issues with delays in testing and getting results, which means in a school situation, you would have a substantial amount of students and possibly staff in your building who are transmitting the virus without any way to safely quarantine or isolate them. So the testing and contact tracing was the second indicator that it wasn't a safe start for Brighton. And then the hospitalization rate. Now, when the decision was made, I think the hospitalization rate was a little bit more stable than it is at this time. So that's a ever-changing situation. If you guys want to track the data that the Department of Health uses, I gave you a source that takes you to the website, and you'll see, and I'll reshare this document so that the links work for you, but you'll see where they do the county by county breakdown. And you can track the cases right along with me. Now, I did ask them about how long do you think we'll be in a situation if things improve today before the spread will be down. And of course, no one can really answer that, but because of how the data flows, it looks like it takes about a month to see a good trend and about 2 weeks to make sure that the gating criteria or that the trend is staying stable. So we're looking at kind of these cycles of 6 to 9 weeks of just checking to see where we are and making decisions based on that. I don't want to spend too much more time talking about that because I want to make sure that we quickly switch into what is fully online learning going to look like at Brighton. So I just want to remind you that always we had a plan to have a fully online component. The difference in what I'm presenting to you today is that our plan was initially to be able to have some face-to-face instruction so that if we needed to default to the online learning platform, people would be better oriented. So I asked for some time and space to kind of rethink and reimagine how you actually start in an online environment. But a lot of the things that we're going to talk about and look at today are the same things that we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we went over the model. And so in that same spirit, we wanted to make sure when we started online that when it is safe and we're able to go back to face-to-face instruction in that hybrid model or that 4-day lottery option, that the schedule could remain consistent. So that was definitely something that the staff and the leadership team really talked through, because we felt like for the students and families and the staff, consistency in what that schedule would look like would be really important, because when we go back, we'll probably still be in this super flexible situation. So what you have in front of you on the slide, what is in red are the changes from the last presentation. Everything else remains the same, and we've already talked about that. So I'm going to focus on the red, and if you need more description on the others, then just be sure to put that in the chat, and we'll answer that. But the one thing that we did go back and revisit is how we're going to consider attendance or being present. And when the teachers come back on July 29th, so next week. When the teachers come back, they're going to be working on a rubric or the criteria of what it means to be engaged. So what we initially presented said you had to be at the online classes and you had to turn your work in daily. The teachers are going to work through reimagining what engagement looks like, knowing that we'll have some students who can attend the Zoom classes at the scheduled time and some who are accessing that information in the evening. So we're going to move more towards engagement, and they'll be telling you what engagement looks like. But I'll give you an example. It looks like turning in your work daily. It doesn't mean at 3 o'clock. It can mean at the end of the evening. But engagement looks like turning in your work daily. Engagement doesn't look like just showing up to a Zoom class with your camera on. That looks like not engagement to us. Showing up to a Zoom class with your camera on and participating looks like engagement to us. So they're going to be talking about what that looks like in their specific grade levels, and then our specials teachers will talk about what that looks like in their specific areas as well. So more information to come once I can get the teachers' thoughts around that. So your big question of, what if I can't attend the live sessions? It's going to be okay. We have a plan to help you with that, okay? The second thing in red talks about synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous means live, and asynchronous kind of means at your own pace. So you as a family will have opportunities to demonstrate engagement, both live or at your own pace. And that's the kind of things that the teachers are going to work through. And I already said the grade levels will be better defining that. Engagement looks much different in kindergarten than it does in 8th grade, and engagement in art looks much different than it does in math. So I want to give the teachers some time and space to break that down for you. And for you guys, those of you who added questions in the collaborative document, that's engagement. I can tell you've already looked through some things and generated some questions. So those are the types of experiences that we're going to have our students do. In fact, you guys are participating in a flipped classroom model right now. I sent something out to you ahead of time. Some of you looked over it and came with questions. Some of you are accessing it right now. And I have this continuous communication through that document that I shared with you, where I can kind of monitor where your level of understanding is. Okay, so Miss Bemis, if you'll go to the second slide. Thank you. All right, so the second slide, again, I'm just going to start in the left-hand column and start with the red on things that have changed now that we're starting fully online. The ability to participate in extracurriculars. We are still waiting on some more information on what extracurriculars will be able to provide. We hope to be able to open up extracurriculars in a virtual capacity. Our focus right now, though, is not on extracurriculars. It's on getting this instructional framework up and running for everyone, which is pretty typical for Brighton anyway. We typically don't start clubs or anything like that until September because we like to get everything settled. Coach Kiker, our athletic director, will be giving you some more information related to athletics, but we are not going to start with volleyball season at this time, given our virtual situation. And he hopes when we get back to school to pick up with tryouts for the dance team, cheer, and basketball, kind of depending on when we come up. But I'll have more information from Coach Kiker on that for you today. Tomorrow. In the first presentation, we talked about specials for the online only students would be optional. And since then, there's been some discussion that from the State Department, as well as our staff, and as well as that making something like specials optional somewhat marginalizes the importance of those enriching activities. So we are going to bring specials into the fully online program, and we've revamped the schedule to be able to do that. So your student will have the opportunity to participate or engage. Remember, we're going to use the word engage in PE, art, or music, and there'll be a schedule that the teachers will give you so you know which one your child will be doing. Taking lessons and sessions with our certified staff in that area. Some of those lessons will be live, and some of those will be kind of pre-recorded or something to do at home, like take a nature walk with your family. Could be something like that. I'm in the middle column now on the red. In the middle column at the top, we had talked about on Wednesday, students could come into the building to finish up some assessments, and at this time, as a general rule, that's not going to be an option. We may have some exceptions with some students in some of our specialized services who we'll need to bring into the school to get some assessment data, but as a general rule, we're not going to have students coming into the building on Wednesday during fully online learning. We also had the plan of engaging in the MAP assessment because we would have students on campus, and we had that Wednesday opportunity to assess students. At this time, the MAP assessment just doesn't transfer very well to that digital world. There are some options for it, but it hasn't really been tested, and the results aren't known yet to be valid. So we just decided to press pause on the MAP assessment while we're in a digital environment. We may bring that in face-to-face instruction because we can add that component in at any time in the school year. And then that third column, the supporting students academically, we did have access to the media center. You're still going to have access to the media center, but it's going to have to be scheduled, and Ms. Peterson's working on something like that, where you may send her a list of books you'd like, she'd get it together, and then you'd schedule a pickup time for her for that. She's also working on making sure she has some good resources for ebooks for you. So those are the main changes of what the online learning, now that we're starting off that way, will look like for the first 9 weeks. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail with you so you can get a better picture of kind of what your schedule may look like. So what you see in front of you right now, thank you, Ms. Bemis, is the schedule that we gave the teachers, and that's your Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday schedule. So Wednesdays are going to be different because remember, we're developing a schedule that will transfer back to that hybrid model. So Wednesdays are going to be different in that hybrid model as well. What you see in each block are the start times of those live classes. So those are your Zoom start times by subject and grade. Our goal is to get the Zoom times down to 15 to 30 minutes, depending on what they're talking about. So when you look at those blocks of time, I don't want you to think, for an example, in kindergarten, they're not going to be on an ELA Zoom. ELA is reading, English Language Arts and Reading. They're not going to be on a Zoom from 8:30 to 10:30. They're going to be in a live synchronous instruction from about 8:30 to 9. They're going to do something in between, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and their next live session will begin at 10:30, okay? As you look at this schedule, keep in mind that crew, when you see it on the schedule, will have crew that meets on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So crew will meet 3 days a week. That way, when we transfer back to the hybrid model, our students in group A will have one live crew, our students in group B will have one live crew, and we'll be able to check in on everybody on online learning on Wednesdays. I've already covered specials will be incorporated into the schedule at a different level. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, your specials, which are PE, art, music, Spanish, drama, the Tuesday, Thursdays will be live, and the other days will be asynchronous. So it'll be something that they're doing at home without needing to be in front of a screen. All live classes will have a teacher and a facilitator, and that was a key mistake that we made in the spring. To be able to teach well online, you have to have someone kind of working behind the scenes to manage the chat box and the microphones and all those things that happen so that you can succinctly deliver the instruction. So like tonight, I have 2 facilitators because I have a really big crowd in front of me. Miss Arnold is doing the job of what one of the facilitators will be doing when we're on online learning by managing the chat box. And Miss Bemis is helping with the slide presentation by making sure that that flows so that I can focus on seeing your faces and checking levels of engagement and understanding that way. Okay, so again, you guys are, if you're here, you're already successful in digital learning. This is what digital learning is. You already have made it pretty far. All right, so Miss Bemis has forwarded to kind of like what that schedule looks like more on a daily basis. So this is the 3rd grade schedule. What's in green are those live sessions. So that's that synchronous instruction that's going to be delivered by the teacher via Zoom. The yellow are the gaps in between. And you as a family can decide what's going to happen during that yellow time. It could be they do some of their work in between those live sessions. It could be you take a nap during those sessions. It could be a multitude of different things that work for you and your family. So the yellow times are what we're designating as not live instruction, but there will be assignments that your student's going to need to do in between those green sessions. But you can figure out when you're going to have them do that. If you'll imagine with me for a minute, when we go back into that hybrid face-to-face model, those yellow gaps will be when they're in that face-to-face instruction with their teachers. So that again is how they're going to kind of mesh back together. You can get a little bit better idea of what the schedule will look like. So in this,
it's just an example.
You'll see that at 3rd grade on this particular day, that they'll have 4 live sessions happening. Now the next schedule that you see is 7th grade, and their schedule looks a little bit different, and they will be following more like a regular traditional schedule where they'll rotate through their 3 teachers that they would have. Their time with their teacher will be, again, 15 to 30 minutes, and in these spaces in yellow, they'll take a break, take a walk, or they could work on some of that asynchronous or that classwork that's assigned. So I'll just kind of give you an idea of what the schedule would look like within a regular school day. And those, thanks to the parents who dropped in some questions ahead of time, I felt compelled to show you the schedule in a different way. So thank you to those of you who jumped on and asked me questions earlier. You helped make the presentation hopefully a little bit clearer. Okay, so what will a live session look like? Because I know that many of you are in a situation where you might not be able to access the live session because you'll be at work and your student will be in a position where you're not going to be able to be beside them. So first and foremost, if you feel comfortable with your student being on the computer without you being present, I really want to invite you to give them some of that independence to be able to get on those Zoom calls with the teachers. They'll all be recorded and they'll all be posted, but that time with the teacher in the class is really important in skill development and concept development. So as the material gets a little bit harder, it's really important that they have that time to verbalize and communicate their level of understanding. So the more Zoom classes you can help your student attend, the more successful they're going to be in online learning. Okay, so think of the Zoom classes as like showing up to school. Okay. Again, we did a lot of research on, well, what should these Zoom classes look like and how much time should we be asking our students to be on the screens, etc. And the research comes back that short segments of time online are more beneficial than long segments of time. And we made some of those mistakes in the spring. We had some sessions that were too long, and if you watched it, we were losing kids within 15, 20 minutes, and we spent a lot of time trying to re-engage students. So we're coming back with a different plan of short, very powerful, intentional instruction for 15 to 30 minutes. It could even be less for kindergarten and first grade because 15 minutes is a long time to a kindergartner. But it's going to be a short, kind of what you would think of like a micro lesson.
Can someone mute the microphone? I keep getting a lot of feedback in a television and causing you, Miss McDonald, to break up.
Okay. They're also designed, thank you. They're also designed for communication and collaboration. So when your kid is going into a Zoom lesson, it's not to watch a video. It's going to be to discuss something that they saw or work with a group of students to apply something that they learned. So that's going to be a key difference. It's not going to be a lot of sit and get. It's going to be more of a processing synthesis time for that. And within every live session, there's going to be this asynchronous component. So for instance, right now, our asynchronous component is that document that you're putting your questions into. This will allow people who access this video at another time to be engaged in the conversation that's happening as well. And again, those live lessons are when you're really going to do some of your higher level thinking. That's your application and your problem solving. And the facilitator should help with some of those technical issues, links not working, things not opening, not knowing how to upload things that we all dealt with in the spring. And then we want to make sure that we keep those live sessions delivered within the school hours. We will definitely post those videos for you to access again if you need to, or for the first time in the evening if that's when you're going to tackle this. But the live sessions will be housed and delivered and facilitated within school hours for that. Okay, so let's look and talk about accommodations and interventions. Ms. Famous, if you'll advance us, thank you. All right, so a lot of you have questions about your student who may be in special education. They may have an individualized education plan or SST accommodation. Sometimes we call that Tier 3 or SST. That kind of sits separate from the schedule that I shared with you earlier, and we're now at a place where we're fitting those services in for our students right now. So if you didn't see something like that on the schedule that I shared a few slides ago, that's because we're making those spots now. That would happen though, more than likely at some part within that yellow zone per se for your student when they're not in the live instruction. Miss Ramsey and Miss Laughlin are my special ed teachers, and they're working right now with the Douglas County school system on getting all the language correct within the IEPs and making sure that they have a nice, strong understanding of all the different types of accommodations and interventions that we can deliver in this online environment. But it will look like either a small group meeting, just like if they were to go to their classroom for their specialized services. Sometimes those services can be delivered one-on-one. That's not a typical delivery model. You may see that a little bit more with occupational therapy services, or sometimes speech therapy services sometimes happen one-on-one. More than likely, it's going to be some sort of small group situation, and you're going to see a combination of that live and student-paced instruction as well. And again, those services are going to be delivered within the school hours, which are between 8:30 and 3:30. And I gave you an email. Ms. Ramsey serves as the lead contact for our special education program. Ms. Laughlin is our other special ed teacher. And this would be for speech as well. So if you just get your questions to Ms. Ramsey, then we can forward what we need to the right people for you. Gifted services also will look a little bit different in the virtual setting, but very similar to what I just talked about. You'll have some small group teaching that happens live, and then some assignments that are happening at a different time. We've also talked with our gifted teachers about using learning contracts and special projects maybe that your student's going to work on during that time. Ms. Danucci heads up all the work within our gifted department for that. So you have those contacts there. All right, Ms. Bemis, if you'll advance. Okay, this is a newer slide that wasn't available earlier. So I just wanted to let you guys know that we continue to work through making sure that lunch and breakfast are available for our students at Brighton. We are going to be posting the free and reduced meal applications online this year. And we are working through some surveys right now. I believe one went out yesterday, checking the need for families to order breakfast and lunch. So once we kind of have a better understanding of the need, we'll be back in touch with more information. But we're planning on using Friday and Wednesday as meal pickups for you. So this summer, you went to one of the local schools within the school system, I think the high schools. You could still do that option if they continue it, but we're also bringing that option here at Brighton as well. Ms. Bemis is the administrator that supervises the lunch program. So if you have any specific questions about that, I've included her email there for you. Miss Mary is our cafeteria manager, and she and Ms. Bemis have been working fast and furious over these last few days, making sure they are getting a plan together for you for that. Okay, so now we're at the part of, okay, what do I do now? I may not like this situation I'm in, and believe me, I hear you, because I don't really like it either. But we have to just kind of start thinking of, well, what can I do to make the best of it and set my student up for success? And moms and dads, you have to include yourself in the mix too. What can I do to set myself up for success as well? Because if you can remain calm and organized, it's going to play out better for your student. So we have a few things that we have tried to think through to make it the best opportunity at a nice, smooth start as we can. Starting with when we want the first day of Brighton to be. And I know there's some communication about things in Georgia may get pushed back after Labor Day. We'll deal with that when we're told to do that or if we're told to do that. But for right now, I plan to recommend to our board that the first student day will be August 10th. And that is a week ahead of the Douglas County school system. The leadership team and administration team talked through when to start school, and we felt that like a slower, softer start is going to be a much calmer and better learning environment for our families. So that first week of school, beginning on August 10th, those are our two main goals that you see on that slide. Making sure that we get everybody acquainted with the technology, meaning those under 12 and those above 12, making sure that we all know how to use the Google Classroom and the Seesaw. We all know how to check for assignments if they were turned in, and everything's working. And we also want to take some time, even in addition to regular crew, to really get connected with our students and take care of some of those social emotional needs and that socialization that we know has been missing for our students for quite some time. So if our board, Brighton's board, approves it, the first day the students will report to digital learning will be on August 10th. We'll communicate kind of what time sessions will be, because that will also be when our open house is. So there'll be lots of different things happening that week with parent meetings and whatnot. So you will get a different schedule for the week of August 10th. And my teachers are working through those details for you right now. So that brings us to the next part. Like, how do you even start school when we can't get together and tell you things like who your teachers are and where your classrooms are? So we've been modeling a virtual open house after several of the universities who have moved all of their orientations online. And we've really been studying what are they doing to bring comfort and information to their families because they're ahead of us in that game. So we have a team of teachers who are creating a special website with all of the information that you'll need for open house. And it's going to have a combination of pre-recorded sessions that you could go in and watch at your own time, and some synchronous or live sessions where you may be able to pop into a meeting with me, and we'll go over things like the 7 C's and what EL education is and things like that. So it's going to be a pretty robust collection of information. It's all going to be in one website for you so that you can access some things when it works for you. And if you want to go in and have that live dialogue, there'll be opportunities for that as well. When the teachers come back on the 29th, they're going to update their school supply list to better reflect starting out online. Some of the organizational tools that are on the supply list are designed for if they're in the classroom with them. They may need you to get that at some point when we come back to face-to-face instruction, but there'll be some revisions to accommodate our current situation. So we will be updating the school supply list. And later tonight, I think I scheduled it to go out around 8. I have a survey ready to send to you on, do you need a Chromebook? How many do you need? And there's a couple of dates that we're trying to see what dates and times work best for you. And once we get that information, then I'll communicate the dates for you to pick up your Chromebooks. All right, so the third point on how to set your student up for success, and I know this is tough because we send a lot of information, but now is not the time to avoid the reminds coming out. It is our main tool of getting school-wide information out to you. So I just need you to hang in until we get everybody up and running, and then the flow of information should settle down, at least information coming from the administration team. If you are not getting current reminds, or if you know someone who's new to Brighton and they haven't yet plugged into that remind and you've been kind of helping them and being our liaison, the information on how to join remind is in that third bullet point for you. We're going to be sending out surveys and forms, and a lot of those things that you complete at open house on paper are getting transferred into the digital world. And so a lot of that information is going to come to you via Remind, and then also housed within that open house website that we're creating. And then come to this meeting, which it looks like you guys did a good job showing up. So again, if you're here and you're feeling a little anxious, just give yourself a pat on the back. You're already participating in digital learning. This is what it is. Like, you're here, you're doing it. So no need to fear. This is what it's going to feel like, guys. All right, Ms. Bemis, if you'll advance me again. So let's talk about what's going to happen next for a moment, and it can be hard to kind of think past 4 weeks. But as a school and as a community, I think it's important that we know where we want to be and where we hope to get. So we're going to continue to monitor that spread and hospitalization and testing capacity. And when we feel that it's safer to come back to online learning, we're going to safer to come back to face-to-face instruction, we're going to start communicating with you that we're going to move back into that hybrid option that we talked about earlier. Again, thinking of the conversation I had with the Department of Public Health, it takes about 6 weeks in the best scenario to be able to see a trend and be able to rely on that. So we are looking at that 6 to 9 week period before something will change. But I will not tell you on Friday to be ready for face-to-face instruction on Monday. Okay, you can count on that. It's going to take us some time to transition back with seeing what days work for you now and that sort of thing. So you will have some notice for that. The other could easily happen, though. We could easily be in face-to-face instruction, and there's an issue within the school, within the virus, or staff availability or something to meet the needs, where I could say we need to boot back to online learning. So again, it could be very fluid, but I'm not going to surprise you and bring everybody back into the building without adequate notice for you. As long as I can help it, I won't. So I just want you to know our goal, our next step is to get back to that hybrid model. And then our next step is to just keep increasing that face-to-face time with everybody and get back to as much of a standard school schedule as we can. I hesitate to call it normal because I think it'll look different, and some things at school need to look different. But we hope to just continue to increase that face-to-face presence over time, so we can continue doing the great things we do with our students in front of us. Right, so that brings us to the last piece, which is a thank you. Again, you guys just participated in your first truly flipped classroom experience. You received quite a bit of information, and you have a document to kind of process that. Now, I'm going to ask Ms. Arnold, if you don't mind, I'm hoping you saw some trends and some questions that maybe I need to be more articulate in or clear up. So if you will present me with anything like that I need to do.
I think there were just a few more questions that came through during the meeting tonight. One was about sports, and I believe you answered that with some information coming from Coach K. And no volleyball, but the hope for basketball and cheerleading. There were a couple of questions about PC or gifted. So if you want to run back through that.
Okay, stop right there. I can only handle one thing at a time at the moment. So for gifted services, kindergarten through 5th grade, we follow what's called a resource model, which means in the online world, your resource teacher, which could be Miss Nesbitt, Miss Danucci, or Miss Pace, will be contacting you with what day and time they'll have their Zoom class, and they will be putting some work in your student's Google Classroom or Seesaw account specifically for gifted that your student will do. Okay, hopefully that answered that. All right, Miss Arnold, what next?
There's a question about the start date, why we're not starting August 17th with the rest of the county, which I think you covered that as well. But if you want to go back over that, that might be good.
Sure. We, as a staff, we talked about, do we want to keep it the 5th like we had? Do we want to move to the 17th? And through the conversation, the staff felt that if we start a week ahead, we'll be able to work out and iron out some of the issues that we know are going to happen because it's the real world. And that when the 17th comes around, we'll be able to go ahead and start laying in some of those academic goals and standards a little bit earlier for our students. And that's part of the beauty of Brighton, that our staff decided we need our kids now, so we can go ahead and start teaching them and learn from our own mistakes as teachers, what's working and not working, and get that workflow a little bit better before we also say, okay, now do some tough work on top of this. So we're excited about being able to kind of start a little bit slower. We compared it to the launch of a new restaurant, like a soft opening. We're going to give you a small sample of what online learning is going to look like. We're going to get some feedback on that so that next week we can come back even better.
I think that's about it from the document. In the chat, when do we expect to roll out the Chromebooks or the devices to students, that timeline?
So in the survey, you have a couple of dates to choose from. The goal is to get them to you before August 10th so that you can access that first week of school. So keep in mind that the staff comes back on the 29th. So it's going to be sometime between the 29th and the 10th. And there's a couple of dates for you to choose from on that survey that you're going to get.
Let's see. Think trying to scan the chat pretty quickly. Parent hours, did you
I did not cover that. So for parent hours, what we did in the spring, every day of online learning is an hour, and I know it's really 10, right? So we'll just continue to have you log that in and count as your parent hours. We did have a meeting with our PTO, and we do see a need to start some sort of after school support for our students via a tutoring group. The idea was some of our parents who can access the live instruction and participate during the day could facilitate some of that with our families who can't access it in the evening. So PTO is going to be reaching out to see, who feels like they have the ability and the desire to provide some of that support to our school community. As well as a staff, when we see the need to increase some after school tutoring, we'll add that in as a school structure as well, just like we do all the time. That's standard for us as a school. When students are showing that they need additional time, then we open up additional services through our after school program, and we're already kind of talking about what that could look like virtually. Our first layer of support, though, is really going to be embracing our families to help with that so that our teachers can get their day a little bit more regulated within that school day, which is going to improve their consistency for the students. So PTO was excited and felt challenged by that request to get that up and running for you guys.
I think that's about it. Miss Venus is answering some more questions in the chat as well. But I don't see any other big trends.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay, so families, this is what we're going to do. We're going to keep that document kind of open and working so you have time to talk through things. Those of you who are watching this at a later time, you can go back into that document and add any questions that you have. At some point tomorrow, I'll go in and cut it off and send you the final edited version of any question that you had. And what I did last time, I'll switch to a different color text. So those of you who've already read it, you'll be able to easily tell what's been edited. And that seemed to work for you guys last time, so I'll do the same. We'll also post this video. If you guys are utilizing babysitters or some, I hear a lot of neighborhoods are doing some neighborhood co-op groups. To help with childcare, I strongly advise you to make sure that you bring those people into that open house component. We'll train anybody how to use Google Classroom. But the more people you kind of have supporting you as a family, the more successful it's going to be for your students. So again, even at daycare providers, if some of you will have some students in daycare or something like that, we're more than happy to show them how to help them and facilitate the online learning. And then they'll be able to access that website at any time. Okay, guys, let me, Ms. Bemis, if you don't mind screen sharing so I can see everybody's faces and try to get the best read on how we're doing. Oh my goodness, 250 people. Way to go, Brighton crew. That is wonderful. I see some people who keep showing up meeting after meeting. Thank you guys for that. I hope you found this session helpful. If you have any more questions or needs, I'm here, my staff is here. It's going to get even better when the teachers are here, although they've been working like crazy behind the scenes too. So some of these details, as they start coming back into the building, we'll just get it clearer and clearer for you so that you can better imagine how awesome this could be. We already know it's going to be challenging, so we're going to work on just making it as great as we can for you. Okay? All right, again, if you have any questions or anything, just use that document. You can keep adding to the chat. I'll stay and read before I get out. Good to see you all. Thank you, guys. Kids, let me hear your voices. It's kind of quiet in the school without you.
Thank you. You're all great.
Jonathan, get over here.
Thank you.
Get over here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Over here. Stop acting slow. She's saying all
Thank you.
this.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great, please.
Thank you so much.
Stay safe.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Don't see me in a while.
We need to record this so we can pipe in noise in the hallways, Mr. Brown, while we're at
Bye, Miss Wood.
Thank you,
like the
dear.
soccer games.
Thank you, Mr. Donald.
You're welcome, guys. Thank you. Good to see you guys. All right, Ms. Donald, do you want to go ahead and stop?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good to see you guys.